and take it away.
Thank you. What a pleasure to welcome all of you to the Rotary E-Club of World Peace. I'm the 2021 president, and I'm really delighted because we are only 4 years old, and we started after the 2016 Rotary World Peace Conference. In 2020, many of you were there. One of the things that we do and what we love is we have archives. So if you hear Jody tonight and you think, geez, I want to hear her again, you can go to the Rotary E-Club archives and record her speech, listen to her, make notes. And that goes for our 4 years of all of these fabulous speakers. So without further ado, I welcome Jody, I welcome her team. And Rudy, I give it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
And this evening, because we have so many people on, we're going to take questions only from the chat box. So as you go through, if you have a question, please put it in the chat box. If you don't know where that is, move your cursor to the center of the screen at the bottom. You'll see a little bubble there that says chat under it. Click on there, and you can enter your questions in there. Tonight, we have, like I say, a special guest, a great friend of mine, who is a real peace builder, peacemaker, Peace Corps member, and former Peace Corps member. And I think probably one of the things that was a great learning for me was the work he did, I think, with 4 other people, who was called over to create peace, stop war and create peace between Eritrea and Ethiopia. And he was part of a 5-person team to do that. And thank you, Chick, for that dedication and work going into those areas that are really rough in the world to make a difference and stop. Chick has a book out now, is in 2nd edition of Exhaust the Limits. He is a wandering peace builder and continues to do that even yet today. And so, Chick, without further ado, my friend, take it away.
Thank you very much, Rudy and Barbara. I really appreciate the opportunity and the introduction. And it's a special honor to introduce my really good friend, Dr. Jody Olson, and also to be reconnected with one of my favorite group. I treasure my relationship with Rotary, the Rotary Peace Program, and I've known and admired Peace Corps Director Olson for nearly 3 decades. Can you imagine, Jody, that it's been that long? And I'm also a huge fan of the cooperative agreement between the Peace Corps and Rotary International. That's very special to me and to those of us who are involved with it. You've seen her impressive bio, so you know she's held virtually every possible position within the Peace Corps, from a volunteer in Tunisia to country director in Togo and Kazakhstan to regional director, chief of staff, acting director, and now director of the agency. Along the way, she ran the Council for International Exchange Scholars and managed the Fulbright Senior Scholarship Program. She's also been a visiting professor and director at the University of Maryland Center on Aging. And I first met her back in the early 1990s when she was chief of staff for Senator Paul Coverdell of Georgia. I think she must be into her 3rd or 4th lifetime, given all of those things that she's done. We're incredibly fortunate that she is directing the Peace Corps in 2020 because the agency faces its greatest challenge in its 60-year history. Due to COVID-19, all 7,300 volunteers serving in 61 countries overseas have been evacuated and returned home. She had to manage that crisis and protect the returning volunteers, and now she has to preserve and shape the future of the agency as it prepares to recruit, train, and deploy a whole new corps of volunteers. No one anywhere is more respected and better qualified to carry out those enormous responsibilities. So it's my pleasure and honor to turn the Zoom microphone over to Peace Corps Director Jody Olson. Jody, it's yours.
Thank you, Chick. And I just want to say again, Chick is such a good friend for over 3 decades. And the part in his bio they didn't say, in addition to his rowing and his boating and the Olympics, is that his most important job was he was head of the National Peace Corps Association for many years. And when I was chief of staff, we worked together. And it illustrates just the enduring quality of Peace Corps and how friends get made and how friends stay. And I know that many of you, because I see it in the chat box here, are returned Peace Corps volunteers yourselves. And so let me say right at the beginning that I live and breathe Peace Corps. I have lived and breathed Peace Corps for over 54 years when I became a Peace Corps volunteer in Tunisia. And I will do anything for the mission and the 3 goals of this agency. And I feel even though this is really a complicated, I have been so lucky and so blessed that I have had this opportunity and that I continue to have this opportunity. For a few of you who probably are not totally familiar with Peace Corps, let me just indicate 2 or 3 basic elements. One is that we were founded in 1961, and President Kennedy on March 1st was the one who signed the executive order that began Peace Corps. To show that life was a little different then, he signed it when there was no budget, and we had over 1,200 Peace Corps volunteers in the field before Peace Corps got its initial legislation and its initial budget. That he was so committed to Peace Corps, he funded it out of, well, what we would call the personal fund out of the president's office, the president of the United States' office. And so it came from a very strong grassroots beginning. In 1961, the first group was August of 1961. And with a lot of doubt about Peace Corps, I'll quickly get to the present, but for then, there was so much doubt because at one point I actually read a lot of Sarge Shriver's letters of, no, you can't do this. This is not about people going overseas. Americans aren't great overseas. It's embarrassing. We can't have women. I could go on. He was challenged at every turn. But when that first group of Peace Corps volunteers got off the plane in Accra, Ghana in August of 1961, and many of you have seen that photo, they sang the Ghanaian national anthem in Twi. It changed the world. All of a sudden, with that moment, and this is what Peace Corps is about, with that moment, people went, okay, it's okay. Peace Corps volunteers can be in countries. Now, Peace Corps, very quickly, we have a mission of world peace and friendship. This is when I really appreciate a lot of the very special work that Chick did in terms of bringing peace to Ethiopia and Eritrea that many years ago. But within the world peace and friendship, and you'll see where Rotary fits into this, but Peace Corps has 3 goals. The first one is to provide technical support to interested countries. And that's what we do in agriculture, health, education, youth development, environment, a couple of others. And we do it by working side by side. Our second goal is to share who we are as Americans. But to do this, we have to learn the language, we have to live in the community, we live with host families, we become part of the fabric of the community, because that's the only way that we can begin to share us as individuals, as just core individuals. And then third, we bring that experience back home and share it for the rest of our lives. And so those of you that are not Peace Corps volunteers, you probably know that you've heard 25,000 stories from returned Peace Corps volunteers, because that's what we're supposed to do for the rest of our lives. Now, let me tell you, what does that look like today, at least before March 15th? What that looks like today is, I'll give the example of the Peace Corps volunteer in Chess, Senegal. She was an urban farmer from San Francisco, had just graduated, about 5 foot tall. There she is out there in the part of Senegal where everybody is close to between 6 and 6'5". Anyway, there she was in the fields with the master farmer. And as I sat for a half a day with her and the master farmer, that's when I learned what these 3 goals were about. First, when she arrived and came into that community, she herself was of Asian American descent. And they all looked at her and went, huh? About this American coming to my village? Who are you? So how do you, in those 3 goals, how do you become part of that community? Host family, kids, eating, food, language, language, language. She spent the first few months learning, being, sharing, listening, living. goal 2. It was only after that first few months that, as she worked with this master farmer, delightful guy, up and down the fields in his hectares, the special vegetables, the fruit trees, months into her situation, could she say, what about spinach? Have you all had spinach before? Should we think about spinach as a vegetable? She wouldn't have done that any earlier because she didn't have the trust of the community. She didn't have the language. She didn't have the culture. But with that, together they went, yeah, okay, well, let's look at what this vegetable is about. And so when I went there, they were into the spinach as well as into many other vegetables and trees. I actually planted a little tree, learned finally how to plant a tree that will stay alive. Although I didn't check on what happened to mine after I left. But there were 3 rows of spinach, one that was just planted and it grew, sort of, another one that was planted with organic fertilizer, and one that was planted with commercial fertilizer. And the 2 of them were just so radiating with how quickly they could see the difference among these 3 rows of spinach. And they had invited the kids in, they had invited the schools in, they had invited the mothers and the teachers to all together look at how the spinach grew. That was goal 2. But that was goal 2 in a way that you do it in Chess, Senegal. It was not goal 2 the way she had learned in urban farming in San Francisco. So that it was a trust relationship. So it could be the spinach in a way that the community could become part of that spinach. Goal 3. From the moment she arrived, she was on her stuff, on her iPad, on her iPhone, on her, I shouldn't talk about Apple products here, but on her products. And she was home with her family virtually. Her family was getting more and more involved. She was blogging, she was sharing, and she was bringing her whole community from San Francisco to Chess, Senegal. Those are the 3 goals. But in order for the 3rd goal to succeed, you have to be good at the first 2. 1, you have to have the language, and 2, you have to have stories to tell back home. And so I take a few minutes to talk about why these goals are so important, because it's why Peace Corps, after these almost 60 years, 240,000 returned Peace Corps volunteers, it's why Peace Corps is that national treasure. Because it so fundamentally changes the human being that goes in the Peace Corps. I like to say sometimes that you go in for the 2 years, you have to give yourself away. And in doing so, you find yourself. And you find yourself in a new way. You're a new person. You're a stronger person for the rest of your life. All right, you now get why I will give anything for Peace Corps. That my goal in life is to make it possible for as many people as possible, as many Americans as possible, to join and be part of Peace Corps. Okay, very quickly, this last year, up until March, we had about 7,300 Peace Corps volunteers in 61 countries. Let's say shy of 50% are Africa, and the next biggest country is region of the world is Central and South America with about 20%. Then Eastern Europe and Central Asia with 13%. And then also North Africa, Pacific Islands, Caribbean, we have the volunteers. So we're all over the world. And the countries are so appreciative. Countries want us to be there. Countries want us to be bigger. We have had a wonderful time recruiting and have the number of Americans that want to join, 88% are under the age of 30. It's mostly for the younger people, but hey, I'm into the older people these days. And I love when we can bring older Americans into Peace Corps. Then, as Rudy said, and as we all know, I made the most difficult decision I've ever made in my life. And for you all to know, I've lived a long time. And for me to say that was the most difficult decision of my entire lifetime it's really saying something. And I have to say, I cried when I made it. And that was on March 15th, ironically, the Ides of March, when I had to make the decision to pull all the Peace Corps volunteers out of the 61 countries. What was happening, and it was the early stages, is what we all know as COVID-19, but we had almost no time as we were appreciating that countries were closing, international travel was closing, in-country transportation was closing. And so our reason for needing to move very quickly, very, very quickly, was not about COVID itself, but it was about, we were putting the volunteers at risk because of transportation. We would not have been able to get them out of the countries if we didn't move at that minute. And I don't think, well, I know that I didn't know. I don't think anyone appreciated the fortuitous, I might say in hindsight, the fortuitousness of that decision at that moment, because I would never have guessed how serious this whole situation has become subsequent to that time. And to say so much about Peace Corps, we were able to bring back 7,300 volunteers in 8 days from villages in 61 countries. The pain, the hardship, the anger, the frustration, the sadness, huge, huge, huge. I can't express how huge that was, how sad that was, how angry. And for those of you that had been volunteers, think of being in your village, you get a phone call saying, tomorrow you've got to start moving to the capital city. You're going to be leaving in 3 days. Horrific. You don't know where you're coming back. You don't know what you're coming back to. And it's in part why I said it really was the most difficult decision that could be made. And I went back to thinking about, because I've known essentially every Peace Corps director since Sarge Shriver, and I thought, what am I doing for this agency? What is this agency going to be? What is this? But there was no choice. So in that return, what we appreciated is what friendship and trust is. Because it was the airlines, Ethiopian Airlines gets a shout out because they rearranged flights, they added flights so they could bring volunteers out of African countries. Many charter flights, hotels, taxi services, whatever we needed to rely on was there for us. We had to ask the volunteers on their return for 14 days quarantine. And when I think about 7,300 volunteers, 8 days, nobody got lost, nobody got hurt, nobody got sick. We've worked very hard since they returned to give them everything we can. They're volunteers, and as volunteers, it gets complicated. But we were able to give them upwards of 3 months of health insurance. I don't want to go through all the special maturations we went, and I had to lean on general counsel and say, we have to stay legal, but let's look at the outer edges of legality. We went to the Hill to get special permission, but we were able to get upwards of 3 months of health insurance. We were able to get unemployment insurance, which was a once only, and it was because of the COVID legislation that was passed. That's when the Hill did a special favor for us. And I think really importantly, for all the returning Peace Corps volunteers, regardless of how long they had served, we were able to get non-competitive eligibility for federal employment. And again, it was a very special moment, but a very important moment to be able to have returning volunteers be able to apply for jobs in the federal government as a non-competitive eligibility. One of the things we discovered with that process is how much other federal agencies like returning Peace Corps volunteers. We ran dozens of webinars. They wanted more. AID says, oh, we just hired 40 new return Peace Corps volunteers under non-competitive. And we've been hearing that from many parts of the federal government. So it's been really, really tough. But I just cannot say enough about volunteers, returning volunteers, and understanding, even in very difficult situations, how important this program is. As we go forward and look at what next, importantly, as we're working out very detailed plans to return. And as you all know from your various jobs and experiences, what we thought might be easy has turned out to be not easy. Let's just say it's been very, very, very difficult. Because you think about all the details of COVID-19, you think of, and this is where it's been a fascinating process for us and our 61 countries of service, that we're having to say to each of these countries, trust us. We've never had to say it quite like that before, because we are in one of the more difficult COVID situations around the world. And so we need to set procedures for us to go back when the countries invite us back to say, we're going to do everything for our volunteers to stay safe, because we know the counterparts have to stay safe, host families have to stay safe, students have to stay safe. We know we're responsible. And it is quite a new way of having conversations. It is helping us build, I think, partnerships with our countries of service that we've never had to quite think about it that way before. We truly are a partner in this return and the complexity of this return. We're hoping, and we have got procedures that are so elaborate, I think we can even set up a hospital or a clinic. We practiced everything. It's going to take over this next year for volunteers to return. We're crossing our fingers double time that maybe by November, the first few volunteers can go out, but it's probably going to be January, February, March. Again, how do we take care of the health concerns? How do we honor what the government needs in our various countries? A lot of the issues are, again, around transportation, flying, and all of that protection. So it's very complex, but through it, what has been so important for me is appreciating what both Rudy, you and Chick said, is the trust that Peace Corps has established around the world. No single country has said, we don't want you back. Every single country has said, when it's right, when we can do it, we're working, we want you back. In addition, as we work on that, we're continuing to work in getting back into Kenya. We are working to get back into Solomon Islands. We're working to get back into El Salvador. And as probably some of you are aware, this a week ago Friday, we signed our country agreement for, after 17 years, way back in my previous job, after 17 years, we're going to Vietnam. And just to take a moment on Peace Corps going into Vietnam, is that they're saying how important it is for us to be there now, right now, as us, important for us to be there. And we think of 70 and 80 years of US history with Vietnam, and to come to that point of trust. To give a quick example, I was there in December, and we were visiting a secondary school where volunteers will teach English. And after it, I mean, it was wonderful to see, and they're already really good at English. But afterward, the headmaster said, I would really like, I just want to show you the dorms, because the Peace Corps volunteers can live in these wonderful dorms we have. So we're going to take really special care of them. And I raised my hand and I said, oops, lovely, just lovely. I'm so glad you're thinking of that. However, we live with host families. We don't live in dorms. We become part of the community. We become part of the education community with the families. Immediately, 3 of the English teachers raised their hands and they said, can I be a host mom? Can I be a host mom? Can I be a host mom? I want to be a host mom. There it was, right there in December. So to say through all of this, as we build on trust, we build on what we've been for so many years. We need to keep building on that. I want to also note, as we've all been struggling, working, appreciating the last 2 months. beginning with the death of George Floyd, subsequent deaths. And I have been thinking particularly with the loss of John Lewis, and appreciating that history, his history, that I have followed since 1963. We as an agency, we as a people, we as a global presence, we as host country nationals, all of whom are also watching what's happening in the United States on their televisions, asking us, who are you? What is this? What are you bringing? How are you different? What can you do? That we are working extra, extra, extra hard, really hard, to be different, to better represent the diversity of this country as we recruit and as we train, to better represent racial equality, to better represent equity throughout. We have a long ways to go. I have learned so much. Our agency listens. Our agency listens to our own stories. We're changing recruitment. We're changing orientation. We're changing training. We're changing how we build mutual respectiveness among all of us as incoming volunteers. And the discussions we're having with host country nationals, because they're the ones that really are there for the Peace Corps volunteers. What do they see? What do they hear? What do they understand? Just to give one quick example of the complexity of all of this, one of our safety and security regional officers for Africa was meeting with his host country national safety and security managers in each of the countries in Southern Africa. So he was meeting with about 20 host country safety and security managers at posts. And they were going through the mini training, all on Zoom, all on little squares, everybody equal. A few of them raised their hands and said, this was about a month ago, you know, almost every one of our backgrounds is Army or police. Are you going to fire us? Are volunteers going to respect us? Can we even talk to Peace Corps volunteers? The safety and security officer at American was floored. I was floored when he told me, because it brought home the complexity of the global viewpoint of what we're all going through right now. And the importance and why, for me, Peace Corps is so important about us getting back into countries, but getting back into countries in a way that represents the best of who we are as Americans, the best of how we can have these conversations, the best of how we can collectively learn from these conversations and take them into the communities where we serve. That is our goal over these next few months. We have to get back. We have to overcome any health issues, but importantly, we have to show the best of the diversity and inclusion and equity that we can be as Americans. That's what we're finding is important for us to give, for us to take, for us to learn. This is a partnership, an unbelievable partnership that is really quite different than anything we've experienced before. At this point, so you now know where my passion is, and I actually had written words, but I didn't even look at them because I got passionate about this conversation. I'm so excited to be here. But what I want to do right now is turn it over to Ted Adams, who is our really strong person working with Rotary. I also want to do another shout out to Shannon Kendrick, who manages all our partnerships program, including the MOU that we have with Rotary. But Rotary is a very, very, very strong partner with Peace Corps. And so Ted can go into the details of that. We need you. Did I get that right, Ted? We need you. And as the volunteers get ready to go, we're going to need you even more. And even some of you who want to go, or want to send your children or your grandchildren, hey, we're on it. We're on it for you. Okay, Ted, let me turn it to you.
That's my cue. Okay, thank you so much, Director Olson. Director Olson, whether it's from 7 a.m. power breakfasts in Silver Spring Rotary Club or the Anchorage Rotary Club last week, or now the 9:30 late night show with you all, she has been so on the Rotary circuit from day one. It's been just such a pleasure, and we are grateful for that. I am a returned Peace Corps volunteer from Ecuador. I served in 98 to 2000 with my wife, and I work on Shannon's team in the partnership and strategic partnerships and intergovernmental affairs office at Peace Corps. I recognize a lot of your faces now because I've had the real privilege of supporting the development and implementation of the strategic partnership between Rotary and Peace Corps over the last, 4+ years. Trying to keep up with Shannon and Director Olson and Rotarians for that time has been the most exhausting and highlight of my time at the agency. So it's a great privilege. So let me go from vision to mechanics real quick. Look under the hood, because I know the Rotarians like the vision, but they also like the mechanics and rolling up their sleeves. So let me try to spend just a few minutes kind of laying out the strategic partnership and kind of where we've been and where we are now and what we're finding, where we're finding some really fascinating and inspiring opportunities to continue to collaborate. I think I'm going to a lot of people know the germination of the Peace Corps strategic partnership probably better than I do, because it was formed and sparked before I arrived in the partnership office. But I'm going to pick it up from 2015 to 2018 when we formalized a partnership. And for those first, Peace Corps volunteers and Rotarians have been finding each other in the field for years, right? And 2015 was really the time when we brought it to formalization. And those first 3 years, I think looking back, were really about trying to find what was working, what each organization brought to the table, how to spread the word, how to learn about each other's organizations and all the different parts and pieces and how they move and how they might move together. And I think to stop there for a second, I do want to give a shout out, especially to of the amazing Rotary clubs that have been super active with posts and affinity groups. This Partnering for Peace, which is this entity affinity group that is the combined horsepower of RPCVs and Rotarians who have come together to really promote and stand up this strategic partnership and do whatever they can to help activate it. And they have been just huge allies to us in trying to understand Rotary, try to get the word out, and we continue to work closely together. So that has been incredible. When 2018, we stopped, when we were looking back and trying to figure out where we wanted to go next, it was really about how do we connect the dots? We have all these dots or stars and this great constellation, but how do we connect them? And how do we connect them as close to the ground as possible? That's probably, to me, that's so much of the core of what works with both of our organizations, is that we are on the ground. So we wanted to really set out to create a guide to help do that, connect all the parts and pieces and stakeholders as close to the ground as possible. So what we did is literally we created a guidance document, and what has gone into it, it ended up being it's a 50-page document that covers the gamut of really offering an introduction to both sides, to both Peace Corps, all the stakeholders within Peace Corps and the stakeholders within Rotary, to try to understand each other's organizations, how we work. So from our perspective, what is a volunteer, what does the volunteer life cycle work? What does the volunteer cycle look like? And how can that work in the field? And what are the sectors that we're focused on? And what are the actual programmatic things that we're doing? And how do you actually drill down and learn more about the posts and do that kind of homework so you can find out if your chapter, if your club is aligned with what Peace Corps is doing and vice versa. So we wanted to offer an introduction. So that's what you'll find. Shannon's going to paste in a link to the document so that you can spend some time with later. But thanks, Shannon. But so that's one part, is offering an introduction to each other's organizations. Another is we wanted to offer a menu of options. There's so many amazing stakeholders. We have such an amazing combined network that spans both around the world, but also within the US. So how do we offer all these entry points for various stakeholder groups, whether you're a Peace Corps volunteer, whether you're a Peace Corps recruiter trying to find Peace Corps volunteers, whether you're a Rotarian, whether you're a district governor, whether you're a post country director. There's so many ways that we can leverage this relationship. So that, we hope you'll find that in this guidance document too. And I guess I started saying the third point is offering entry points for anyone to begin the process, because we are such fluid organizations. We often have leadership coming in and out, right? And we have, just as we have volunteers coming in and out. So how can we create an evergreen kind of living document that will allow a Rotarian at any point to be able to pick it up and say, okay, this is how I can, this is what I want to do, and this is how I can begin to do that work. So it is maybe not the Bible, but it is our effort to to put that all together and continue to work on it. So we're excited about that, and hope that you can, and when I say we, I've been working closely with my counterpart at Rotary International to put that together. So we work very closely hand in hand with Rotary International. So let me just spend a couple minutes here talking about that menu, the ways that we're engaging and we're finding work really well. And I want to do it in terms of kind of Peace Corps speak a little bit in terms of the life cycle of a volunteer. So and this is really how he tried to lay out the document as well. But let's start at the beginning, the recruitment for us, right? How do we develop this great pipeline of potential volunteers to go out to serve? And we find this is an incredible opportunity for us to be able to source volunteers, whether they're volunteers who are, Rotary Club members and 50 plus or below 50, or if they're Rotary or folks who are involved in Rotary programs, because Rotary works with so many youth programs, so Rotaractors or Interactors, and helping us connect with those different groups and start talking about Peace Corps and Peace Corps service. And so we've created a whole task team, and I want to give a shout out to Carrie Carmichael, who's not only has the best name, but also is here somewhere on our Family Feud list. But he is a recruiter and is one of the leaders of our Rotary task team for recruitment. And what we've done is we've set up a team that is within headquarters that works with all of our recruiters to figure out how recruiters can be great access points or entry points for Rotary clubs. So a Rotarian or Rotary club can reach out to a recruiter, and there's instructions on how to actually find a recruiter near you and connect with a return Peace Corps volunteer. That's a good starting point, right? To just invite a return Peace Corps volunteer to come talk to your club. And that could be by a country that your club may be interested in, or a return Peace Corps volunteer who might be from your community, or there's different ways you can put out a search, and recruiters can help do that. Another is to invite a recruiter to come talk to your club about all the recruitment and service in Peace Corps for whatever age group it is you're interested in learning about. Recruiters are also great touch points for a little bit further up the pipeline. Is once we get applicants and they are accepted into Peace Corps, we have different events such as send-off parties. And what a great opportunity, right, from a partnership standpoint, to introduce Rotarians to volunteers as they're heading out. And not only to encourage them on their way out, right, knowing what they're heading into, but also to talk about Rotary, so that in the back of their mind, they're thinking, okay, back here, I know there's this thing called Rotary and there's this club, and they might be interested in what I'm doing once I get settled, once I learn my community, which may not be for a while, right? It's not going to be immediate necessarily. So those are just in the recruitment space are some ways that we found are proving we're really excited about, and our recruiters are really excited about. Again, Partnering for Peace has been a great ally, and Rotary International, and trying to kind of match up recruiters with their regions and Rotary clubs that are in those regions. So a couple more things, moving into the heart, kind of the heart and soul of the meat and potatoes, our heart and soul of the partnership is our collaboration on the ground, at the post level. And I just going to mention a few different kind of models that we're finding are working really well. And one is the standard, the tried and long-lasting, proven Peace Corps partnership program, which is essentially a small grant program which allows clubs or individuals to help fund volunteer-supported projects. It's basically they do small grants for their communities, and they've been vetted, and they're carefully determined projects that have been set up so that there's the community is bought in, the community is coming up with part of the contribution. There's a sustainability aspect so the volunteer can finish the project while they're there in service, and all that is carefully crafted. So that is a proven great opportunity for a club who wants to start to get involved, and they can look up where volunteers, maybe a volunteer from their community they can find, or from their state, for example. There's different ways you can search for projects. So that's another entry point that's been really successful and supportive on the ground. Another is kind of this triangular approach that is kind of our holy grail in terms of opportunities to collaborate where we can connect a US-based club with a host country club, a Rotary club in a country, and a Peace Corps post. Because we found if you can build a relationship with that, and within that triangle, you have a really strong connections that can do some really exciting things. We've seen a couple examples of that, of a literacy program that was developed in the US, the Sounds Literacy Program, which many of you may know about, which was developed in the US and by a Rotarian and supported in South Africa by Rotary clubs, and then brought to the post in South Africa in the education program. And actually our volunteers were then trained in that Sounds Literacy Program, and the volunteers took that out into the field and have been using it for multiple years. Another one is a book drive. I'm calling it a book drive, a book initiative that in the Dominican Republic, where a U.S. club, and I'm just trying to I want to touch on a lot of these lightly, so there's a lot of detail on all these, but a club that brought together resources in the U.S. was able to source a number of library books and materials, and then use Rotary clubs in country in Dominican Republic to be able to distribute them, or to be able to get them there. And then volunteers on the ground were able to receive them into their communities and actually work with the teachers or add them to projects that were underway to build small libraries. So the role, you can see kind of how these kind of things fit together, where the volunteer isn't doing the role of shipping or receiving. They're the ones in the communities trying to connect the dots and help get them to those hard to reach places. And then another one I just want to touch upon, which we're really excited about, is what I'm calling this kind of network, these networks of Rotary clubs in some countries that both on a volunteer level and on a post level, where we've found that we've had volunteers go in and specifically work to connect Rotary clubs so that they can be all together, they can help facilitate collaboration with Peace Corps. So for example, in Ukraine, we had a volunteer, Shannon, who basically reached out and connected with a lot of different Rotary leadership across Ukraine and brought them together to help develop a RILA program on the ground in Kiev, which was really well received. It brought together participants from all over the country. A number of volunteers helped in the actual training event, and they're actually doing another one this year. It's going to be virtual, but they're doing another one, even though Shannon is back home. She's still connected with it, which just opens up a whole nother door of opportunities, right? But so that's been really exciting. And then there's another opportunity when you have these networks of clubs where there might be, a dozen clubs across the country. They can be a tremendous resource for posts. In some countries where posts are having trouble or are looking for great community partners to place volunteers with. So having a coordinated kind of web of Rotary clubs coordinating around finding community partners to place volunteers is tremendously helpful for Peace Corps and posts. And they're finding that it's not only helping in placing volunteers in great nonprofits that Rotary works with, but then Rotary can be involved in a lot of those projects once a volunteer arrives. And the Rotary can also be a real ally to help orient a volunteer to that place. So I know I covered the gamut pretty quickly, but those are some of the ways. I think finally is the coming home, right? The returning back home. And what better landing pad to come back and regroup and re-enter the U.S. than a Rotary Club where you can continue your network and continue your leadership and community building. So all these we're kind of working this all across the gamut here, and we tried to lay it out best we can in this guide, and we'll continue to work on it. And I hope you all can have spend some time with it. But and if you have questions outside of that link, there are ways to contact us, and it's always the partnerships@peacecorps.gov. We can always get you there. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ted. One question that we've had a couple different people bounce up there was that if our Rotary Club of World Peace wants to help support a project, Peace Corps project in another country, what's the best way for us to make that connection?
There are, within the guidance, there's some specific links to the Peace Corps Partnership Program. And, you know, right now it's more important to go there than ever before, because right now without volunteers there, you know, those are in a certain programmatic place that you want to be aware of, but that's really a good place to start.
Okay. Director Olson.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is great. Really appreciate your whole team here on with you. Do you expect, I know that you don't have a crystal ball, but do you expect that you'll begin to be able to get in early 2021 folks back out in the field?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pull up my little crystal ball here, and this is what I say as of, 10:21 p.m. East Coast time on July 28th, that our goal is to begin to return volunteers this coming November. Very few. I would guess that early, so that's first quarter 2021. By second quarter 2021, which is January, February, March, I think is when we can start doing a lot of returns. So the opportunity, Rudy, is, or in the questions that were being asked, particularly of Ted, to go to the website on the Peace Corps partnerships and identify a kind of partnership that you would like. It puts a head start even before the volunteers arrive, because it takes time to set something up. But again, here we are, but I'm going to put hopefully early quarter two of 2021 that we can have some serious return. Let me quickly answer one or two other questions that were right there, because I can do that all at once. Is that our host country nationals and our full team in our 61 countries are all there. They're a key partnership to make it possible for us to go back. We have doctors in every single country, as those of you who are return volunteers know. We have medical units. Doctors are out as we speak, working with ministries of health, working with clinics to make sure that health-wise we're ready to go. Which leads to the other question that a couple of you asked about budgeting. At this moment in time, we've got terrific support from the Hill and from OMB that is giving us the resources that we need to be able to fully return as we can fully return. In addition to, as I mentioned, 4 countries I mentioned, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, that we're working on to expand into, and we have the resources to do it. But so we're very excited about that. And just to assure all of you that we are so respectful, I cannot say enough about our host country staff in each country and the work that they're doing. I want to do a quick shout out to Anne Frisch. Is that who it is? There you are. It's pretty rare to be able to say that you were on the steps of the Student Union of the University of Michigan at 4 a.m. on October 14th, 1960, when then candidate Kennedy gave the very famous speech that was the beginning of Peace Corps. And when I saw that note, Anne, I went, oh my heavens, that it was so important moment. And there you were.
Did you realize that we have a member that's a Peace Corps volunteer that's returned? And
No.
that's Sala. She went to Ghana. She's here, and she should be acknowledged.
Oh, and
I think we
And
have a
Philip
lot.
Helmick
I think
is too.
I think we have a lot of returned Peace Corps volunteers.
There are several.
And the truth is, you don't ever fully return.
No, you're right. We never do. Several of you, not several, there's about 3 of you that were in Togo. One of you was ahead of me. 2 or 3 of you were right after me. Let me do a special shout out for the Togo Returned Peace Corps volunteers.
I'd like to see all the Peace Corps volunteers who return, raise your hand. We'd love to just see who you are, because I think there's a lot of you.
Yep.
I'm going to the second sheet now. Don't stop. Oh my goodness. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your service. God bless you. All right, Jody, fabulous talk tonight. Okay, Rudy.
the Jody, you're going to be able to go into Vietnam. What's it take to develop that relationship to go into a new country?
Oh, okay. Very good question. What happens is that this is the part where we work with the ambassadors in each country, and we work with the ambassadors of the country in Washington. And most often the country approaches us and says that we are interested in having a conversation with you about Peace Corps. And so with that, we have a series of conversations, and that leads to ultimately a memorandum of understanding between us and that country. And to say, yes, we're partners and this is how we do it. You know, for example, host families and community, et cetera. Then we do an assessment to assure on about 5 points. One is the health of the volunteer, the safety of the volunteer, the support of the government, and the support of the government is not always money. Sometimes it's in-kind resources about, you know, identifying a counterpart, et cetera, for us to be there. And then programmatically, that the programs that they're interested in us doing match the volunteers and the skill levels that volunteers can bring to that country. And as we walk that all through and it stays good, then we then prepare volunteers to go overseas. But I think unlike any other program I've seen, and I've worked with a lot of programs, developing a Peace Corps program in country, and Rudy, I'm so glad you asked the question, it is truly a walking partnership. And it is an official memorandum of understanding between the United States government and the government of that country. And they do it as a partnership, and we do it as the invitation from that country. So our Peace Corps volunteers work for ministries. And so we work, for example, in the Ministry of Education. They're the ones that assign where we're going to go. They're the ones that assign the schools and our counterparts. We are hand in glove with the governments. We work side by side, a lot of NGOs. And let's say, for example, picking up on Ted's point, of a Rotary International group is identifying, let's say a local Rotary, and I just pick countries at random, but let's pick Senegal. And you connect with that Rotary in Senegal. Our volunteer connects with that Rotary in Senegal and might be doing projects with that in a small project assistance program. So we do work with a lot of local NGOs, international NGOs, but officially we're a partner with the government as guests of those governments.
We have a question here that when a new volunteer goes into a country, are they assigned to a different part of that country than the person that was there before them?
Okay, and just the government of each country has to invite Peace Corps. Yes, absolutely. Now, what happens is that our Peace Corps staff go and visit the sites. They're working with the ministries about what are appropriate sites for that volunteer. and when the volunteers come. And then based on that, the volunteer is assigned to that site. Now, in some cases, a second volunteer will go to the same site and a third volunteer will go to the same site. In other cases, that will not be the case. It depends on the project. It depends on the working relationship and with the community and the completion of the project.
Okay, well, this has been great. I'm sure we'll have a few more questions in here. We appreciate, we're coming up on the hour here, utilizing your time, and whatever we can do, we want to stay connected with you, because whenever we can do to support Peace Corps out in the field, we are behind you 100%. And our club is kind of unique because we have members around the world, and all of them are engaged in peace at some point, and we really want to get hands-on projects and get behind them out in the field.
Well, see, that's perfect, and perfect for us. So you've got now the manual that we use. You've been introduced to Shannon, and a couple of you have met Shannon before, and you've been introduced to Ted, and we are so eager to stay connected. This is one of the best ways that volunteers can serve in country, is through these partnerships with Rotary.
Talk a little bit about your website. Is there a way that we can see what's going on an ongoing basis?
Just in general with Peace Corps, yes. At peacecorps.gov, and through all of these last few months, we've been putting FAQs out pretty regularly. There's places for the whole small projects. We have a lot of materials. We have training materials, we have program development materials, international development materials. Many of those are public and available. All the countries, the description of the countries in which we serve, it's all on the website. And then also even training programs for kids, what to do in high school, internationally. We have got so many materials, and almost all of them are available. So please go peruse the website. We also have little videos, thank goodness for Peace Corps volunteers, that are also clever with IT, because we have these 30-second, 1-minute, 2-minute videos of what they're doing, what their counterparts are, what their little houses look like, what kind of food they eat. Boy, they give you all kinds of stuff. We got tons of stuff.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And I want to thank you again. I've met so many Peace Corps volunteers, and when you said their lives change, I love my Peace Corps volunteer friends. They're calmer, they're more peaceful, and they're more present. Now, maybe they're so glad to be home. I don't know the answer. All I know is I love the Peace Corps volunteer personality that you produce, and I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for all of you who joined us tonight. Some of you, this is your first time to come to our Rotary E-Club, where every Tuesday night we have a fabulous speaker. Rudy has put them all up on our website. Anytime you're interested, just bring yourself along and join us from 6:30 to 7:30. And if you're not a Rotarian, you might want to think about joining us also. So thank you very much. Rudy, I'm letting you close down the meeting tonight. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks. And I thank all of our members for joining us tonight, and all members in our club that are Peace Corps volunteers, and also that joined us extra tonight. Ted, Shannon, thank you for jumping on with us tonight and supporting Director Olson. Director Olson, thank you so much, sharing your time and energy with us. Really great chick. This is great to see you, old friend. And keep up the good work. I didn't mention that you were, I think, elected into the Public Diplomacy Council. Is that right?
Just last week, yes.
Just last week. So congratulations on that. You continue your work, and you're making a huge difference in the world, as are everybody on the call here. And
Tell him you'll put his book up.
yeah, and I'll put your book up on the website too. So
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
so you can spread it beyond your street and your community there. It's all good stuff. So thank you so much. And again, this recording will be up on our website. And please, if you have any additional questions that didn't make it in the chat box, I have saved this. I will forward this on. I know Steve Warner wanted it, but also I'll get it over to Ted, and Jody, and Shannon. If there's any additional questions in there, you may answer those back to us. And if anybody has any additional questions they think about, I'll forward those on as well. You can email those to me. I believe you all have my email address. So we look forward to those, and let's get over COVID and get back in the field.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Peace be with you.
Night, thanks.
Okay.